Let's start exploring the collect method using the collector argument. A collector is an interface that internally wraps the logic of creating a mutable result container, accumulating elements, and combining partial results. Instead of writing that logic ourselves every time, the JDK provides factory methods in collectors class. These factory methods give us ready-made collectors for common use cases, like collecting elements into a list, set, or map. Let's start with a simple example. This use case we have already implemented using 3 argument overload of collect. And for other 2 use cases like get employee IDs by department and get average salary of employees per department. These use cases will use standard collectors provided by collectors class. This will help you see how the same problem can be solved in different commonly used ways. Well, for these examples, if I just go to department service, here you can see I have created 3 new methods: get employees by department using group by, then get employee IDs by department, and get average salary by department. I have already given call to the repository layer methods associated with them, where we will actually implement the methods. For example, if I go to this, here you can see that there is a method employees by department using grouping by. Here we will give implementation of it. Next, find employees IDs by department. Here we will give implementation for this, and find average salary by department. Here we need to write implementation for this method. So let's start with the first method, that is employees by department using grouping by. Now you can see that we got employees by department using standard collect method with 3 argument syntax, that is a supplier, then accumulator, and combiner part. But here we will explore collect method with collector argument. Now I'm calling database proxy.getEmployees. I open a stream here, well, and I call collect. Now you can see that there are 2 overloads. The first one we already tried out. Now the time is for the second overload, which accepts a collector. So here there is a collectors class, and we will be using grouping by method of this class. And if you observe, we want department and list of employees. So for grouping by, there are again 3 overloads, but we will go with the first one. So here the argument is a function. It takes one input and returns something. That is a functional interface function. Basically, this function derives a key for your collector. Let's see how. So key for my map is nothing but department. So for given employee, how do I get the department is through the get department method, and I just provide the method reference, and that's it. What will happen? This argument to grouping by, which is get department, will derive a key for the given employee, and it will basically collect all these employees in a value of the map. And that's how the collectors grouping by works. So isn't that easy compared to what we have written by hand here? So let's try the first method out and see. So in department service, the call is already given. We need to call get employees by department using grouping by method. So again, department service dot get employees by department using group by, and this will return me a map, and we can directly iterate this. And we have already written this code over here, which I'll just copy from here using grouping by collector. Well, let's run this code. Before running it, we need to give call to this method. So I'll keep call to the previous implementation so that we can easily compare both the result. Okay, let's just print name of the method. That will help us identify how we have got the map basically. Well, now our main method calls both these methods so that we will able to see output of both the methods, and they should be same. Let's run it. So this is by get department wise employees, which we have already implemented, and this is the new implementation get employees by department using grouping by collector. And if you see, it has created a map of department and employees the same way we have. So the output is exactly same, and that's how this collectors dot grouping by makes our life easier. So just to revise, we used collectors class, which has implementation of multiple collectors, and we want to group employees by department. That's why we use this static method grouping by from collectors in order to group the employees by their department. So that's quite intuitive and easy to implement. Now let's go to the next example, that is find employee IDs by department. Now let's say I don't want employees over here, I want employee IDs. Okay. One more thing is that I don't want list now. I want a set. I want set of all the employee IDs by department. Now, how we can do it? Let's just copy the same thing. We will copy these two statements. They won't change. So we open the stream, and this time we give call to collect with collectors, and we'll be again using grouping by. We use the first overload with a classifier. We mentioned that what is the key derivation function that you should use in order to group the elements, and by default it collects the list of all those elements against the given key or derived key. This time my key remains same, so the first argument for grouping by would be get department. So my key won't change, but my value, I don't want employees in the set, I want their IDs. So there is another method in collectors class itself, which is nothing but mapping. So mapping, it returns a collector where you can map given elements specific property. So this time I want employee ID from employee and not the employee itself. So I need to first map the employee to their IDs. So how do I do that? It is quite simple, that I will just call employee.getID. That is my mapping function, and second argument to this is how I want to collect the result into a value. I want value to be a set. So again, in collectors there is a toSet method which returns a collector to get a set. So I'll explain it again. We have been using three methods from the collectors here. Don't get confused. First one is the grouping by, that is method which creates a map. What is key to the map is the department, that is the first argument. And second, what is the value that we need to define? Value is nothing but set of IDs, employee IDs. So we used collectors dot mapping to map employees to their IDs, and second argument to it is nothing but downstream collector which groups the element into set. That's it. Once you practice it couple of times, you'll find it easy to implement. So yeah, the implementation is done, and now let's go back to the demo and give call to the department service. So here let's have another println statement, get employee IDs by department. We can keep using grouping by. So here we have department service dot get employee IDs by department, and this will return me a map of a department to set of employee IDs. And here I can just print employees. I want to print employee IDs in the department, and how can we print is nothing but say employee IDs, because these are employee IDs. This is set of long, and remove this, and we can directly print this entire set over here. And let's run the code and see. So we are printing employee IDs in department name, followed by the sets toString will execute here, and it will show all the elements from the set of employee IDs. Let's run the code and see the result. Well, this is get the employee IDs by department using grouping by collector. So employee IDs in finance are this, then employee IDs in HR are 5689. Let's validate one of them. So finance 13, 14 and 15. So yeah, that sounds correct. HR 5689, HR 5689, and I assume 1, 2, 3, 4 and last element is 12. Yeah. So bingo. We got how to use grouping by with grouping by and mapping and toSet. We saw this variation. Now the last example that we are going to see is get average salary of employees per department. So let's say there are 3 employees having a salary of 100 each, then average salary of the department becomes 100. Well, so we want to calculate average salary of employees per department, and let's implement that method in the repository layer first. So this is the last method, find average salary by department. Here let's start implementing the method. The database proxy dot get employees dot stream, I'm calling collect on it, and now collectors I'll be again using grouping by method. Here I want a map of department and the average salary. That's the reason I'm using grouping by. It returns a map. Well, now my key is department. So the first argument is a key classifier function. So key is the same. It is employees department. Now I want to calculate the average salary. So I want a collector which calculates the average salary for the employees which are collected. So I again have a factory method called as averaging double, because the salary is of data type double. So we have averaging double. You can see similarly summing double, summarizing double, and averaging end, averaging long, and so on, out of which we are using averaging double. Now to this averaging double, what we have is 𝗏 function. What is this 𝗏 function? It represents a function that provides a double valued result. It is basically specialization for the function. And function is, it takes one argument and it returns something. In our case, it will take an employee and it will return a double, right? So which field we are interested in is a salary field. So we need to simply map salary from the employee, and that's what it means. So I map the salary field, which is a double field. So if you observe, if I say get address, it will start giving issue because it is not double field, and 𝗏 function expects a double, so it has to be double field. So this grouping by will create a map with key as a department and value as an average of their salaries. That's quite easy, right? And that's it. The implementation is done. That's quick. We'll go back here. We need to give call to the service layer method, get average salary by department, and we can just print every department, and the second argument will be average salary. That's what our each map entry will be. And let's print out that maps entry. We even don't need this. I'll say department, let's say name, has average salary of, and let's print the average salary over here, average salary. Yeah, and that's it. So we will print department name and the average salary over here, and let's run the code and see the result. Wow, bingo, we now have average salary of employees calculated. You just imagine if you have to do it by hand, how much of code you need to write, and how much code you have written to just get average salary is one single call to the collect method and just one grouping by call, and that does all the magic under the hood. So that brings us to the end of this video on the collect method. We started by understanding collect in its core form, then explored how it's commonly used through collectors like grouping by, mapping, and averaging double. We also saw both simple examples and real project like structure examples, so you can clearly see how collect is applied in real applications. Take some time to try these examples on your own. That's where the real understanding comes from. In the next video, we will move on to another important terminal operation, reduce, and see how it solves a very different kind of a problem. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.